All right, well, we're back in action.
Back in action after a couple weeks off.
Couple weeks off, and honestly, I was really happy. And thank you, everyone, for your texts, your calls about, our the episodes that came out and our big launch. I think it was interesting timing, us launching while we were both away.
I think that was
Unplanned.
actually nice. I think that was actually nice because it gave us an opportunity to be able to say, not distract in the grind of work and kids. I mean, there was a grind for sure happening on vacation, but it gave us an opportunity to hear feedback and have people reach out and have people text or call or write a review and catch up with our podcast team to really see the progress, after launching 2 episodes. So I feel great about it.
I do too. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to kind of unpack our vacations and what that looks like. And you know what I was thinking? Do you remember your first job where you had paid time off?
Ooh,
Because I remember mine. It was my CNA job. And the first
yeah. I
vacation I
mean, I
took,
were I waited tables forever.
yeah, so you're
Shout
not
out
getting
to
paid time off.
Yeah, shout out to servers. I think we could talk a whole episode about the skill set you learn working in the restaurant industry, and I think it's one of the more powerful things you can do in your like formative years. And I think my first job with paid time off was probably when I got into behavioral health.
Yeah, I was a CNA and I remember my first vacation, this took me back because my first vacation, I went away with girlfriends to Puerto Rico and I was working an overnight. And this will link into my recent vacation experience. But I went on that vacation and I was working overnights at the time. So when I went on vacation, now I'm having to adjust my sleep schedule, right? To be like awake during the day. And they all wanted to go out clubbing and out late at night. And I was like, yeah, so I want to be in bed by 9 and then wake up in the morning and be able to enjoy the beach. And I wanted to go and go around San Juan and go and see things. And there was a lot of conflict on that trip because of that. They thought that I was too good for them, or it was because I was dating my now husband at the time that I had a boyfriend. And I don't think they really understood a bitch is tired. I'm working overnights and going to school full time during the day. Like I
Yeah.
slept. There were times where I went 48 to 60 hours without sleep regularly during that time of my life. So for me, a vacation was like restorative. I wanted to get regular sleep. I wanted to be outside during the day at the beach because I couldn't do that in my regular life.
My siblings give me a lot of flack about my regimen when we're on vacation.
Because
And
we
honestly,
stay on it, right? I
well,
stay on my
this
regimen.
week was rough, okay? But outside of this week, I will say that yeah, typically, I mean, granted, I still got up at the same time. I still went for a walk or did some sort of movement. I still went to bed at pretty much the same time, maybe like an hour later, right? Because we're with friends and we're conversating and having fun and whatever we're doing. But I can vividly remember it was 11 p.m. We were in this main house that we rent, or our family's house, and we were staying there for a week, and the walls were like paper thin, and my siblings were partying, right? Like they were having fun. There might have been some drinking involved. They were playing some sort of card game, and I was like, guys, you gotta like be quiet. Like it's just too loud. I gotta go to
Ollie needs
sleep.
her sleep.
They were so
Yeah.
upset. But yeah, I mean, I think there is this element of once you're in a routine and you know it works, it's really kind of hard to throw yourself out of that because it takes just as long to throw yourself back in, right? So it's kind of like is the juice worth the squeeze? And it's really not, right? Like
No.
it's easier to just stay consistent and do what we always do, even when we're on vacation. And it also allows for a lot of quality time during the day, too, right? If you're not sleeping in and drinking at night and
Yeah.
whatever else is going on, you know?
Well, after a week of reflection from my vacation, I think that was a really big part of my dysfunction during and even this past week getting back into a routine. So, for the listeners, I went on a 9-day cruise with my family and 24 other people. And I did
I
not,
tried to warn
I,
her. I just want to, for the listeners, I tried to warn her. I really did. But
we've
you were
been
very
committed.
positive.
I was
You
very
were
positive.
committed, positive, and I think a little skewed about what a cruise is because it's been a little bit of time since you had been on one.
So it's been 6 years since my last cruise. I did cruise. Listen, my first vacation, my first international vacation of my life, I was 11 years old. I went on a cruise with my great grandmother. My great grandmother was a cruiser. She cruised all the time.
Serial cruiser.
Serial cruiser. I went with my great grandmother, my grandmother, and my two great aunt and uncles. And we went to England, Russia, Germany, Norway. Like
Oh, that's
that was my
cool.
that was my first experience out of the country. And it was great. I got up at midnight for the midnight buffet. My great grandmother would wake me up to get ice cream. I mean, what kid doesn't love that? It was an old
Totally.
person's cruise though. I was probably one of like 5 kids on the ship. So my background is I have cruise. This isn't like this was my first time, right? And I've had great experiences. But I now, as a mother and as someone who's juggling a lot of roles right now, I undervalued how much I require peace and quiet. And I create that for myself. So to be clear, I create that for myself. My mornings are my quiet, peaceful time. That's my time to myself to do what I want to do without anybody asking me for anything. And I normally am able to keep up with that routine when I'm at a resort, at a lake house vacation, whatever. The other places that we go, I can do that. I wasn't able to do that, and there was constant noise. There was a lot of noise, whether it was the noise from the ship, even when I would go get my coffee sometimes we would go get our coffee at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and there would be people that were still up from the night
Oh
before.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And then the people working would be like, "Do you know what time it is? Are you sure you want like a large Americano? Two, please. Two, please." But even then, you're sitting, it's dark on the ship, like it's quiet, but there's still music playing. There's always some sort of stimulating noise. And I think that's what really kind of just heightened. It wasn't the kids. The kids had a blast. And honestly, my kids have been traveling on planes since they were 3 months old. I've traveled with my kids from the time
Yeah.
they were born,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
So they are little travel soldiers. They know what to do. They're very flexible. They can go with the flow. That's not My son was a little annoying, but what 7-year-old boy isn't at times? But it was
I
and it was a
mean,
lot of people. It was a lot of people.
but your kids thrived. Your son
The
thrived in that
kids,
environment.
the
Remember
kids
at one point you
thrived.
texted me and you were like, I'm looking for Beckett.
Let me tell you, and this is why I didn't pull any legitimate statistics about this, but listen, I think there are some parents that are nervous to travel with their children
Hmm.
because, and you see the memes, right? You
Well, it's
like
the
bring your,
sleep. It's the sleep. It
it's
is
the
the sleep
routine.
hands down. It's the routine and the sleep cycles. Because if your kids aren't sleeping,
You're
which
miserable.
m my children struggled this trip, it was
You were all
5
in
a.m.
one
wake
room,
up, all in
one
one
room.
room.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's tough. We were as well. I'm sure our room was smaller than yours.
All in one room. My husband and I with our son in the king bed, which is okay. I mean, it's not terrible. But then my daughter, who's 11 months, is in the pack and play, and there's no barrier between like my son's noises, if I cough, if I move, and then as soon as the baby wakes up, my son hears
Everyone's up.
her, and then everybody's up. Except, I mean, shout out to my husband who, let me sleep a little bit in the morning so that way I could function. Because I also, for some reason, I mean, talk about, your own sleep cycles and your own ability to stay consistent, I was really thrown off. And I think a lot of it had to do with, I'm coming to the end of my nursing journey with my daughter. We pretty much at the end. And I couldn't go to sleep. All of a sudden, like I have insomnia that I've never had before. Usually, if my head hits
That's
the
the
pillow,
worst.
under 15 minutes, I'm asleep, right? Now it's taking me 30, 40 minutes. Oh, mid-trip, we have like a huge tornado warning. All the phones go off, like the world is ending. I mean, there was a lot going on, you know? And I think that you just have to roll with it. You just have to roll with the flow, but it really does take a toll. It really does take a toll. So, I mean, I think, at the beginning of the episode, you asked, how has PTO, like, what did PTO look like in my job? And I really didn't know how to take PTO until I was given it, because you work in the restaurant industry, you don't have it, right? So you're kind of always guilted if you call off on a shift. You're always guilted if you switch a shift. If you call out sick, it feels like you're leaving the whole island high and dry. So when I began to be able to take my own PTO, I was still pretty guilted about taking PTO. Like I would take the week off. I would always dedicate 1 week. I've been pretty good about 1 week, no work, no work, pretty much. I try to do 1 week, a full week a year. And I started that years ago when I started working in behavioral health, because as you know, like you become really, really burnt out if you're not taking time for yourself. Yeah. And at the time I was single, I didn't have kids, right? Like a week off felt within the normal limits of what I needed at the time. I think as we start to develop and have families and have more responsibility, more time is probably needed. But 1 week felt realistic at the time. And even as I was, hours before I was about to go on whatever that week was with no connection to work, my boss would still say to me, "But do you think you could just take admissions calls?" And I'd be like, "No." And I really held firm on that boundary, and did for those years that I worked in that organization, because I just felt it was so needed and somebody else was going to be there to pick up the pieces, right? Whatever it was, as long as somebody was answering the phone for the family in need, everything else could be managed when I got back, right? I don't know if that was your experience when you would travel or when you would take PTO in agency, but it was, it was a boundary I had to set. It really was.
I mean, it's a culture thing. And I know we've discussed this a little bit before, but being able to take time off and have that protected time off is a culture thing. What do your leaders model in terms of paid time off? If when I'm on vacation now, I have very clear directions for my staff, what they can reach out to me for, when I'm going to be available. And I hold that boundary, because I heard somebody say today, actually, boundaries are not for the other person. They're for you, right? So if you're on vacation and you have your staff calling you every day for every little thing going on, and you continue to answer the phone for those things and problem solve and troubleshoot those problems, then you're not holding your boundary.
Right.
Those people,
Right.
They may still call, right? But I've learned to be more specific around what I am available for. I will say that when I was a CNA, that operation runs with or without me. No one's contacting me on vacation with updates, right?
Yeah,
About the assisted living facility. And I will say that I've worked at behavioral health places where I can remember when my husband had the heart attack and I was out for a period of time. And then when I was on maternity leave, that particular agency, they did not contact me at all. There was and I was in a leadership role. I was a coordinator at the time. They didn't call me with questions. They didn't bother me to troubleshoot things. I had my time off, right?
Sounds like they had an HR department then.
They didn't.
Really?
No, it was a private agency, and they did not have a HR department. It was
That's
the
pretty
owner.
impressive, because
Yeah.
most places that don't have HR departments, or they have like a pseudo HR person that finally they realize, oh, we have so many employees, we need an HR. Uh, Usually those are the agencies that kind of break those, you know.
No, but I will say when I worked in the nonprofit world, I mean, I talked about it in my story, right? I came back from maternity leave early. I remember taking calls within a week or two of giving birth, because we were in a critical part of a startup process. But I don't know. I think it shaped how I have culture around taking time off and really encourage that for my staff now. And also, I schedule, it's even for work boundary. Like, I won't send emails after work hours. I will schedule them to be received in the
Yeah,
morning.
schedule sends.
I'll schedule send. I won't call after hours unless there's a crisis or an emergency. And that's very few and far between. And I really train my leadership staff and my management staff around that, because if you're used to getting texts and calls and emails, even when you're off, well, if you're checking them, that's you not holding a boundary. However, like, I got plenty of emails while I was away. I just didn't respond. I just left them on, like, okay, this isn't nothing. If it's urgent, call me. If it's urgent, text me.
Yeah, and I think the schedule send feature has really changed the game for people, right? I even schedule send text messages right now.
How do you do that? I didn't even think that was possible.
Oh, it's possible.
On an iPhone?
Yeah.
I need to know more about this.
Guys, check it out, the schedule send feature. Because some of my clients, I use text message, obviously, and I'll be catching up from my day or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, I got to get an appointment time on the books for this, for this family or this client. And so I'll schedule send, right? And some of my clients are in different, parts of the country, right? So I want to make sure that I'm not impeding on their evening hours, unless it's an emergency, obviously. So I think that is also, there's all these different ways that have allowed us to become more flexible and accountable, right? Because it's flexibility in the sense that, like, you don't have to send an email tonight in order for you to offload it and, not forget.
I need to get it out of my brain.
Right. So that's why the schedule send features are so nice. But what I will say too is that there is an expectation in behavioral health for individuals to have a pulse on their team, right? So there was this challenge that I would have with especially managers, that they would go on vacation, which is great, and I want to empower everybody to go on vacation. But if you are not setting yourself up for success prior to going on the trip, and then there's things that you only have the answer to, then that becomes a problem, right? So I think it's also
that's a coaching and supervision issue, right? Because there's some managers who are new and they don't realize that. There's some that comes very naturally to. Like, I have some mid-level management that they over communicate right when they're about to go out, and then I have others that they're 3 days into their vacation, and you're like, what?
Well, now I have to call you.
I didn't even know what to do with this.
Now I have to call you.
Yeah, now you're getting a phone call while you're in the Bahamas because I had no idea that this was something that I needed to be aware of.
Right, and I've had to do that. And I feel bad. And it's like, well, you should have prepped better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
but I think go ahead.
Did you work on vacation?
I worked a little bit. I had a client, I worked a little bit. I didn't have total freedom to be fully off. But I scheduled my days around kids' naps or whatever it was, and I worked a lot at night after the house was quiet, right? Because I could think, we had to do some stuff for the podcast. I, had to listen to at least one episode of the podcast. I, full disclosure, haven't listened to Jill's episode yet, but will. And I had to do some of those things to be able to, feel like I was staying consistent and caught up with what I needed to do when I got home.
Yeah.
I feel like you did the same too.
Yeah. I worked a little bit. I gave very specific, I had to hand off tasks at 2 different companies, right? So that looked a little different. One of our companies is only a year old. So I handed off and trained staff. And honestly, one of the learning lessons is that I was able to hand off some tasks much earlier in that business than I have been able to at Inspire, because I have a team that I'm working with which was really nice. I was like, again, that prep work to go out. Hey guys, these are the things that only I know how to do right now. So you need to sit with me. I need to train you. And the expectation is that you're going to kind of do this while I'm out, or it doesn't get done because I'm not doing it while I'm away. That was my boundary. And then at Inspire, it was like, I've gotten to the point where I can go away and things will function without me, except for payroll. Payroll. And let me tell you, every time I go away, it is a payroll week.
I know.
It is like
about
clockwork. So this was the first time that I handed it off, and I did
How'd
provide
it go?
I provided some support, but it went well. We're going to do it again next time if that timing works. But I could remember, and my husband and I talked about this. I remember being in Mexico, doing all the billing, doing all the. I mean, I was working every day. There was a dedicated part, usually in the morning before everyone woke up, because I'm usually up first, but there was work every day where I actually had to work. The work now when I go away is much more, reach out to me if you need support with this. XYZ is an immediate text or call. I've had one client one time that did have a major crisis that was like, this should not be handled by somebody else. I'm going to take the phone call. But yeah, I feel like I now have the freedom to choose what I'm going to work on. And that's the freedom of having your own business and being an entrepreneur, I think, because
Right.
one, the perception is that you're working all the time, which there are times it's not, I don't clock out, right? So even when I go on vacation, if there's something that my team needs support with that maybe I only have the direction for, or they can't wait until I get back to get direction for it, then they're still going to reach out to me. I need to be accessible.
Yeah, I think it's just, again, outlining and being proactive about what is an emergency and what isn't, right? And I think that happens really even before we talk about PTO and vacation. And building a business is all about helping individuals understand what is a crisis, what is an emergency. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said right now? Right? Kind of using that example. I'll repeat that. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said right now? And that's like a little mantra that I feel like I've lived by in what is a crisis or an emergency and what isn't, right? There is this
they
level.
do happen. They happen
Yeah.
with the people that we serve. And also sometimes the staff have crisis. Sometimes, which then affects if a key member's going out, especially in a startup. I mean,
Right.
you and I have both had experiences with startup businesses. And when you have a startup, depending on how you structure that, I mean, it's all hands on deck. You are wearing 18 hats. You are filling in for all the roles. And so it becomes harder to kind of step away, especially in those early like years.
I know. I was thinking about when you said you just handed off payroll. Well, I've never had to really handle payroll, and I will be handling payroll. Like, countdown is on in the next couple of weeks because my biller is about to have a baby. So I'm sitting here sweating about it. I'm like, send me all the Loom videos, give me all the instructions. How about Loom videos? I mean, if you're not familiar with Loom videos, that has been really instrumental, especially when you're teaching people or guiding people or training people. If you want people to be trained in a universal way, Loom videos are pretty clutch for that because it gives you the opportunity to train the individual exactly step by step of what you need done. So, I asked her, I said, hey, I'm going to need a Loom video for this.
I've been using Loom videos for our onboarding training since like 2021.
Yeah.
Now we can use Zoom too, but
yeah, sure.
Same difference, but it is very helpful. You can see if people watch it, which that's a cool part too. If you're training a team, you can see if they've watched it. But yeah, I learned that as we grew because it's like, wait a second, I'm repeating myself about the same thing over and over.
Yes.
I'm actually going to switch to just saying it once and then watch the video.
Right. Exactly. But then, what happens is you start to instruct in a different way too. You're like, oh, but it's never going to be so consistent. The same instructions aren't going to come out of you the same way or be delivered in the same way as it was, to Joe, who was trained last month.
I think when you're in leadership, though, the idea of taking a vacation and stepping away, and I have really coached people around this. You need to step away. I mean, I've talked about this on other podcasts. I've talked to this with people I mentor. Actually, one of my really good friends, Ani, who is a boss nurse at a hospital in Massachusetts, I was on vacation with her last year. I know her through vacation. We vacationed together as throughout our childhoods and into adulthood. And we went on a hike last year, and I was like, yeah, I don't know what it is. It's pretty much every quarter I go away. It's not, and I say go away because if I stay home and do a staycation, I'm working. I will be working.
Totally. 100%.
And she said to me, she goes, you know why that is, right? Because if we're home, people expect us to be available. And if you travel and get into a new environment, it's the only way your brain can almost like let go of the responsibility.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
when you get out of your normal routine. And it was such an aha moment and where I was able to be, I don't know if accepting is the word, but sometimes I'm embarrassed to be like, yeah, I actually have to go away every 3 or 4 months. I mean, I always have a trip booked. One, I love to travel, but two, it's become almost necessary with all the things I have going on. And it's not that I completely check out. It's that I have the clarity by stepping away from my day to day for my brain to like problem solve certain problems that's going on, for me to see things in a different way, for me to just play and explore and things that I can't always do when I'm in the grind. I just,
Well, I think that you've been instrumental for me in that, right? Because there's been this, I've always traveled, and my husband and I traveled a lot pre-kids. We've always traveled with kids. Our kids are also really, well versed in being able to, take an airplane or take a road trip or whatever it is. And but what I found happening was that I would get to the point where like, oh my God, I need to get away. Like I'm at a point where I feel overwhelmed, stuck, just not able to really get out of the, day to day. And then I would rush to book something, pay more than what I should, is number one. And then also have to kind of feel like it was almost like a pressure cooker, right? Like everything needs to come together so we can get away for a few days. And so it's funny because one of my girlfriends who I traveled with this week, had mentioned about you saying, God, Jill's always on vacation. And I'm like, she's just really good at planning ahead. So it feels like, yeah, she's always on vacation. I feel like she does take a decent amount of trips and she plans them in advance so that way she never feels stressed about it, right? I mean, there's a little natural stress that comes with taking a trip, packing, getting all the kids ready, what you got to do to get out of the office, whatever it is. But I think what's really been instrumental for me in our friendship is me future dating some trips and being able to say, okay, this is going to be on the calendar. And now I have something to look forward to. And I also don't feel like the pressure of, the pressure setting in like, oh my God, I got to get away because now I already have something on the books.
well, that planning a trip and anticipating the trip, having that countdown, looking at all that stuff, it hits your brain in the same way of actually going on the trip. So the whole time that you're planning something and putting something on the calendar, it is a stress reducer because okay, I have this thing planned. Full disclosure, I have at least 5 trips planned right now, okay, that are set in stone for the next around 18 months. And the other hack to that is that I am a real budget travel agent for my family. I mean, I'm using
You
points.
are really good. You are really good.
If I get a deal on something, I am so pumped about that, and I'm like price checking. I'm getting things reduced. I like haggle. That's like my part-time job, I think.
I know. I feel like I need to be better at that. At one point in my life, I feel like I was good about that, and that has since decreased. Okay, so I was
mean,
talking to one of my girlfriends when we were traveling last month, and she was talking about how she does some certain sort of like flight tracker that she's able to compare and get the flight for the, I guess she puts it on watch, I guess. There's like a watch
Oh
capability on
yeah,
Google.
on Google. Oh, I use that all the time.
I've never used that, and she said it's a game changer.
Yeah, because it emails you when the price goes up or down.
Guys.
Yes.
And another friend of mine gave us this hack called points.me. And it's a website where you can combine all your points and it gives you the algorithm to be able to take them from all the different credit cards and combine them and put
Oh,
them all
really?
in and tells you how to spend them. Yeah. Our
I
friend has been
mean,
doing it for years and he says he has really good success at being able to fly like really comfortably because he's been able to combine points and it tells you exactly how to move which points from which card. So that's
listen,
my next.
shout out to points. I mean, I tell people this, there are there are people who have negative feedback about my vacationing and travel. Listen, that's what one of our priorities in our family are. All of us love it. This is what we do. This is what we spend our money on. Fine. The other part of that is there are some trips that we have gone on that have been very inexpensive because the flights have all been paid for. I mean, we've gotten
Yeah.
reused points for the hotel. I mean, so you also have to think it's kind of like when people look at influencers or all their people and they're like, oh, they get to do all these things. It's like, okay, but you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Are they in debt? Are they putting all this on a credit card? Are they using all their points? Are they like, you don't know what people's situations are, right? But I do think that you can't, the moral of that story for me is I have prioritized travel since pretty much since I've gotten married. Before then, because again, I went to Puerto Rico with those girlfriends before, but I knew I always wanted to see the world. I like to experience different cultures. I want to, so in order to do that, you have to have some sort of financial abilities. I mean, it's not always cheap to travel. And so then I started really, especially before we had money. I mean, when I was in grad school and all, I didn't have a ton of expendable income. And then you have kids and then it becomes more expensive. I really looked into all these hacks of like, okay, if I want to do this, how am I going to do it? How am I without putting myself in debt, right? Um, and here I am. I've mastered it.
And you're starting to really realize what you have to do to keep your mental sanity when on vacation. I think,
And
let's
yeah,
talk about that a little bit. I mean, there is this level of being around people, stimulation, kids, and we have been taught, lucky for us, we have been taught when there is a problem or we are frustrated by something, it has everything to do with us and nothing to do with the people around us.
even
That
though we want other people to change, we actually need to look within us and change what is within us.
Right, because we're not changing anybody else. We're only responsible
No,
for our own actions, period,
correct.
including our children. We're
Which
not
I didn't.
responsible for their actions either. I
Yeah.
mean, we have influence, but if my toddler is not listening and gonna continue to not listen, I can take actions myself, but I can't change him. And
Just walk away,
sometimes that
Molly.
is really hard.
Let your child thrive. Just walk away.
I had to a few times. I mean, but I do think that that's something to note, right? Outside of kids, right? That has to do with other adults, that has to do with other individuals, friends, family, etc. Oddly enough, I ran into a friend. This is how people show up in my life, and I'll give this example. So, I have people that have come across my life, made impact on my life for as long as I've been able to be aware of it, right? And so I took a picture when we got to LBI, and a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in roughly 15, 18 years messages me and he's like, "Are you at LBI?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And the next message he sends me was, "Are you going to go to a meeting?" And I sat there and was like, God, isn't that like nice, right? Accountability from another friend who's like, "Hey, are you going to do something to better yourself while you're on this trip?" Who I
Yeah, are
hadn't
you
talked to in 18 years, right?
but yeah, that goes to like the people that we need in our lives are going to do that. They don't need to. Yeah, what are you doing
And
to
we
stay
went.
sane? And
We
honestly,
went
that was a God shot because you know you needed that too.
totally midweek at 7 a.m. on the beach. Beautiful, right? It's just about getting there. We got there. But what we ended up talking about after the beach meeting, which was really, a great time, was this instinct of wanting things to look a certain way. And when someone is doing something that makes me feel uncomfortable, I want to change it, right? And that comes out a lot when you're on vacation, okay? Because there's a lot of people, a lot of personalities, and really mostly when my child, specifically because the other one is a baby, is misbehaving or acting in a way that I don't see appropriate, I am I'm a ticking time bomb. Truly. I am struggling to be able to
Yeah,
let things go. I'm struggling to be able to find, peace and contentment. So, all in all, those subtle moments, if I'm looking for them, or not so subtle, where someone's like, "Hey, are you going to go, take care of yourself in this way?" And that could be anything. For me, going to a meeting, great, but like that could be meeting up with somebody to go take a workout. That could be, taking a pause to go read. That could be just taking a walk by yourself, whatever it is.
it could also be sending unhinged audio voice notes to your friends who you don't even need a response to, but you really need them to understand what is happening in your life at that moment, because that's probably what saved me from misbehaving on vacation.
The cab ride.
We don't even need to get into it, but there were moments, again, it's been a week that I've been able to process, and honestly, getting back into a routine after vacation, this is why a lot of managers and leaders don't take vacation. I will tell you why.
Because it's hard
They are
to
they
get
are
back in.
afraid. They are afraid of what is going to be waiting for them. It's not, they'll say this isn't even worth my time. I saw a stat at one point about, I think, like 40 to 60% of people with available PTO do not use their PTO throughout the year.
It says it right
First,
here. 60% of managers take less PTO than their direct reports. That source came from SHRM 2024.
I mean, but it's because they either going to feel guilty about leaving their team, they're worried about there's going to be more work. And let me tell you, I left so many things before I went to vacation. My mentality was, this is an after vacation problem. This is an after vacation problem. I wasn't really keeping count of the amount of things that I was putting on that after vacation list, but it was very disproportionate to the time I left myself this week to get it done. And so
Well,
what
that
my
could have also
weekend,
impacted your trip, honestly, because you're pretty good about offloading. I mean, I will say that we're probably comparable at that, looking side by side, is that not leaving too much on the return and feeling pretty free going into it. I will say that you felt a little
relaxed.
less, you were a little less organized going into this, okay? You hadn't even packed, I mean, day before. You were still
Oh,
not packed, which is very unlike
okay,
you.
well let's back it up. I went through the end of school year chaos, which if you're a parent with elementary or middle school age children, we're in it together. I'm with you in solidarity because that end of the school year, last 4 weeks, insanity.
Doesn't
Okay.
it start in like May? Like
Yeah, it
basically
was
they stop going
insanity.
to school in May.
Then you have spring sports where both my kids are in spring sports. So 4 days a week we're at spring sports and weekends. Then my daughter was an all-star. So we went right from the end of school to camp schedule and all-star softball practice and games every day leading up to leaving till the day before leaving on vacation. I mean, it was insanity. And then I have deadlines to meet for some projects that I put on hold until I got back. And listen, it's going to get done. I mean, am I going to work on it probably over the weekend? Yes, I am,
Yeah.
but it will
Like a
get done.
sign off here
But it will get done. And you know what? If it
on the
doesn't get
computer
done,
on the way up to the lake house. I mean, I
no,
will
because
say,
I don't have my husband here. I can't work. I can't work and
oh,
drive.
he's gone. I
Yes.
missed that part.
So regardless, here's the reality. If it doesn't, somebody was trying to put their stress of my deadlines on me the other day, and they were like, "Oh my God, do you need help? Do you need... Listen, if it doesn't get done, there are some natural consequences that might come, but the world's not going to be on fire. Would I be disappointed in myself if I can't get it done? Sure, but that's my poor planning, right? So I either set aside time and get it done while I'm solo parenting for the next 4 days, or I don't. That's a choice I got to make. But I'm probably going to work at 4:30 or 5 in the morning for the next couple days and
I
bang
mean,
it out.
I finally learned. I know that every car says it, and hopefully there's more people out there than just me about that can relate to what I'm about to say. Every car in the last however many years has said it's got a hotspot capability or Wi-Fi capability. Okay, have you ever understood what that meant?
Yeah, you can tap into your car's Wi-Fi.
Yeah, yes, I understand that, but it's not just there. It's not just available. You got to like sign up. There's all these steps. Did you know this?
I have a hotspot on my phone, so I use that if I need it.
Right, so do I. But I believe that this hotspot is a little bit more universal. So it doesn't, like, when your phone doesn't have service, it doesn't mean you lose your hotspot in your car.
Oh.
So anyway, I signed up for it. And that is how I got some work done on my way on my trip. 3 hours in the car, kids were napping, and
Oh,
I
I've done
finally
that.
figured out how to connect to my car hotspot.
I've done that.
I was really happy
Actually,
about that.
actually, remember the last time I came down to see you? I worked the entire ride down writing
Yeah,
out policies and procedures,
yeah.
which if anybody out there is like me and has to write policy and procedures or update them or review them, I understand ChatGPT is available. I understand AI, all that. That's great. You still have to read through them, right? And that sucks. That's the worst. You will never catch me wanting to sit down and do that. So I was car trapped. It was actually the perfect solution for that specific task.
Yeah, because that's something that you'll easily get sidetracked with if you're in an office and you have other things that are more fun and fulfilling than that.
That's an after vacation problem right there. That sounds like an after vacation. You know when I do this too? This is just showing my level of how my brain actually works, but I do this a lot in December. I'll be like, that's a next
That's
year
an after.
problem. That's a next year problem. I tell my team too, I'm like, yeah, next year problem, guys. Not working on that right now. And then the first of the year comes and the first
And
couple
you're
weeks of
like, oh,
January.
it's all here.
Oh, without missing a beat, it's like I should really start making a list and just name it at next year problems because we should have a cap for how many things we can add to that list.
And just to be able to like check yourself on that. Because there's also this level when I was on vacation this past week that I was like, oh, like I had help with the kids. I had time with the friends. I had time with my friends' kids, like all these beautiful things, right?
What about your spouse? Did you spend time with Sam?
Not really. We were on opposite shifts the entire trip. Truly,
You
the entire
mentioned
trip.
every other person on that trip except for her husband. I just wanted to make that known.
We were on total opposite. We were not synced up, okay? I can tell you that. We were not synced up. We were synced up maybe a few hours a day, but he was up in the morning with the kids, then he would take a nap midday. I'd be up with the kids. It was just like, it was
That's a
something.
struggle. But you know what, though, Molly? That's going to change. Like, you have very young kids still. I mean, even
Yeah.
when you were talking about like packing up the kids, my oldest packs herself. She's a pro at this point. I mean, I double check it, but she gets all her stuff together. And you know what? My 7-year-old is responsible for doing that too. Just like I require them to pack their own bags for school and for camp. If you forget something, that's called a natural consequence, and we're going to learn not to do that tomorrow. I mean, there's some independence and responsibility skills we're learning from an early age in the Griffin household.
Yeah, and My kids are not at that stage.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but the point is like they're responsible
Because
for
if I
packing their
forget the
bag.
formula, we have problems.
Yeah. So, but you're responsible for doing more for them. I just think that as, and honestly, a lot of families that I think since COVID, people are exploring more, they're traveling more. I think that's like picked up for sure over the last couple of years. But I talk to a lot of people that are traveling with their kids. There have been some people I've talked to that won't go away with small kids just because either their nap schedule or they're this or they're that. And it's like, I don't know. I think it's really important for kids to be out of their routine too and learn how to be flexible too.
It was great for the kids, right? It was so fun for the kids. All of us parents were exhausted, and really, yeah, I think that's the hardest time to connect with your significant other is when you're doing like a trip for the kids, right? But my husband and I had a trip a few months ago, just the two of us without the kids, and it was wonderful and glorious and lovely and all the things.
I'll
And
be
this
on a
is,
kid-free trip a week from today.
yeah,
Little short weekend, but let me tell you, I had a glimpse into what it is like to not have children. My parents took the kids yesterday, and then my husband left early on a work trip this morning. So I had yesterday. He came home with dinner, and I was like, "Is this what it's like if we just
I saw that.
didn't have kids?"
6
I,
p.m. in your pajamas waiting for dinner. Saw it.
on the couch, chilling. I mean,
But
this
you
just
don't
goes.
remember what it was like before kids. Like you really
No,
don't.
but you know what? If you're listening to this and you don't have kids, I will tell you that
I'm so happy for you.
you are not taking advantage of the free time that you have in your life. If you are
Right.
someone without kids right now and you are listening to this, you are underestimating your superpower of time right now.
And
Because
enjoy every bit of it.
once you become a parent, your time is no longer yours. You're going to be like me, either waking up at 4:30 to work or work out or whatever, or you're going to be doing it at 10 o'clock at night because that's going to be your only time to yourself.
But it wasn't that long ago that when people would say that to me, I would be like, okay. Like I didn't have, you started having children younger than I, and I would hear people say that and it just didn't compute. Like it just does not compute. Like I would see my friends who had kids, multiple kids. I think that it just,
You
yeah,
don't
you
get
just
it
you, you just you
until it
just
happens.
live each season. I don't know. I just feel like when I didn't have children, I had so much fun and I had so much excitement and I traveled and I enjoyed and I had time for myself. And now I'm in a different season that feels hard and a struggle sometimes, but also rewarding in the same way. So
Well, it's
I don't know.
different. Although my mother does say to me sometimes, like, as an employer now, and she pointed this out to me, but I find it to be true as well. If you look at the employees that you hire, the ones who have children tend to have better time management skills. And I think I'm going to throw myself out there and say I think women mothers probably do it a little bit better because it's like, well, I'm not going to step into this meeting at 3:50 because I got to leave at 4 to get the kids. Like there are certain time constraints you have as a parent that you then have to, you have to get the work done in this amount of time because then you
Yeah.
have to switch over into the parent role and be at a game or pick up your kids or do whatever, right? And so, you're not going to be charged the late fee at daycare if they charge you by the minute. You're a minute late, you're getting charged. So I think time
I'm
management
aware.
skills are honed in a little bit differently once you become a parent because of all those other consequences if you choose not to have good time management. And honestly, it affects your kids and it affects you financially because of those late fees and all that stuff.
Yeah, I know that we've kind of talked a little bit about working in more of a male-dominated industry, but in the last 5 years, I've actually worked primarily with females, right? I haven't worked mainly, a lot of my staff were women. And so there was a lot of good, now that you're saying that, I feel like there was a lot of good structure around people's time.
Yeah. Yeah. Which goes back to the whole concept around PTO and setting your own boundaries around your PTO. If you're a mid-level manager, if you're a CEO, if you're in
Or
leadership
if you're
in
an
some
entry level
capacity.
worker,
Yeah,
you
but I
know?
think if you're in leadership, you need to be modeling for your staff what the boundaries around time off are. Because if you go away and you say, "Oh, but I'll be available," and then you're taking calls the whole time, one, you're not building your staff to feel empowered to take on and be able to show you that they can take on some leadership while in your absence and
Well,
handle some tasks. And also, you're giving them the example that, oh, well, when you're off, I'm going to bother you and call you, because it's like this, it's a psychological thing. Like, well, they're off, but they're still answering my calls. So
I
I
mean,
should answer theirs.
I was really, really diligent about that, in the last however many years that I ran agency because of that reason, right? Like I had seen how old bosses and old colleagues had not done that. And so pretty early on when we opened, I remember going away. I guess it was probably a year in. I went away for like a week long trip or 10 days. I didn't have kids yet, so I was still kind of playing that boundary and utilizing that boundary that I had had years prior, which was like I took like one full week off of work. And at the time, I remember I didn't even turn on my phone off airplane mode. Like I didn't buy the international plan. Like I truly was off.
You gave me
And
all this shit about not getting the internet plan. Thank God I did,
we
honestly.
we gave you shit because we thought your mental health, we thought you might throw yourself off the ship.
I might have if I didn't have the internet package.
Exactly. But then I didn't have kids, right? So it was just me and a couple other couples that would go away every year for a week. And I remember that time being so valuable, but the people who it was most valuable for was not necessarily me. It was actually the people that worked for me because it gave them an opportunity to problem solve, skin their knees, make a
Yeah.
mistake, fix it. And then when I would get back, they were so excited and eager to tell me all the things they had accomplished, the hard cases they were able to walk through, the challenges with a family that they struggled with but were able to come out the other side, the challenges between them as directors to communicate on something and then have to problem solve it. When I'm there, I become their almost their like stuffed animal, right? Their
Yeah,
emotional
you're there.
support. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily they don't have the skills to do it. It's that they need the just a little bit of cushion, right? Knowing that I'm there and I support them. And so I did that consistently, right? Taking 2 full maternity leaves, 3 months off, right? And I had somebody say to me, as I started transitioning out of my role there, I had someone say to me like, "Well, what does that look like when you're not there?" And I said to them, I said, "They operate the same when I'm there versus when I'm not." And I really believed that. Yeah, there's going to be mistakes. Yeah, there's going to be challenges. Yeah, somebody's going to make, a stupid decision, but it was never compromising the safety of the individual or the safety of the other staff. And
But
as
that's
long
what
as those
happens.
two things weren't impacted, everything else can be fixed.
But that's what happens when you have mission driven values, right? And when your company is values driven, because when you are away, the mission should still be carried out,
Right.
right? So as long as everybody's on the same page around what the mission is, regardless of if you're there or not, those staff are going to represent your company just the way that you would, whether or
Yeah.
not you were there or not. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
And
overall,
that's really something to be proud of.
yeah.
That in and of itself. If there's anything that I did in my career that you did in your career, if people abide by the mission and vision that were created upon the inception of the agency and still carry it through to today, I don't know. I feel like that's the highest accomplishment.
Absolutely. And I do think that in terms of building that culture around PTO and vacation and time off, somebody taking their time, you want them to use their available time off, because if they don't, it's going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to maybe a paid, some sort of like FMLA or paid leave when they do have some sort of breakdown. Like we're not built to just go, go, go. There has to be a period of time where we take a break, take a breath, reset, and we're not in the daily grind. And if you're somebody who's listening to this and thinking, you know what, there's people on my team that they aren't using their PTO every year. I hammered one of my staff. I'm like, you can't go through the whole year with having this much PTO left. It can't happen. You're about to have mandatory time off, because otherwise we're going to get to a point where it's going to be really hard to come back from the level of burnout if you're not taking this time for yourself.
Well, and if you're not using it, ask yourself why you're not using it. What does your leadership look like? What type of values are instilled in your organization? And are you living in more of a fear-based organization where the constant pressure is, well, if I do go away, how does that reflect upon me? What does that look like as far as my ability to grow in the company? What are all the storylines there? And so you really got to lay that out.
Well, what I have found sometimes is it is people's own perception of, I don't want to let any balls drop. And it's like, okay, well, what if they do? Like, you kind of have to play that tape through. And like, if you do all the prep work and you set everybody up for success and something still falls between the cracks, that may happen. And it's probably going to be okay. Like, it's probably going to be okay. The whole company's not going to fold in your absence. I mean, that's even in mine, right? It would take a long time.
Right.
It would take a long time and a lot of really wacky things to happen for everything to just fall apart.
Yeah. So
you're doing the permission slip.
Oh, permission slip this week. Thanks for the heads up, which AK there wasn't.
No, I wanted to put you in the hot seat. Day back from traveling.
Oh, I feel like I don't have enough caffeine for this yet, but permission for it to be messy. Really?
Period.
I mean, I think that's it, period. Permission for you to be messy, for your vacation to be a bit messy, for for just to be able to let loose a little bit and be out of your routine and share with others and be vulnerable with others when it is messy. I mean, I think that was the biggest takeaway for the two of us, right? Was while we were away, we shared, the humor and the mess, right? So
a lot of mess.
Yeah. Permission to be messy.
I like that one. Well, thank you everyone for listening again, and we'll see you next time.
Tune in next time. Bye.